You know where Memphis is, corner of Tennessee, come south, and southeast about 100 miles is Oxford. And then 35 miles southeast of Oxford is Grenada. Well, it just so happened in the spring game, you know how that is, we tell the new guys not to hurt anybody, you know. But we were standing on the sideline over there, and I knew Olen was on duty that weekend. He had duty at Millington Air Naval Station, which is just outside of Memphis. But, you know, there we were, ready for the football game, ready to get spring practice over with, and looking forward to that. And in the second half, probably around 3 o'clock, 3:30, I was standing on the sidelines, and Coach Kennard, Bruiser Kennard, was one of the coaches of our blue team, and of course the other team was on the other side of the road, the field, and everything was just going fine, you know, running the plays and everything. And all of a sudden, from the southwest of Grenada came this airplane. I mean, it was a jet fighter, and I mean, it had to be going Mach speed. I mean, it made so much noise going over that stadium that Coach Kennard got down on the ground. Most of the players got on the field. They dropped the pass that was being thrown and everything and got on the field. I did not go. I said, I know exactly who that is. That's Olen Acres, you know, having fun and going back to Millington. Sure enough, they had the assignment to come south from Millington to Grenada Lake there, and that was the assignment, you know, with their airplanes. Well, he checked his gauge. He had just enough fuel to swing around by Oxford and get back to Millington. Well, I mean, that noise of that plane, it vibrated that tin roof on the press box, you know, for 5 minutes. I mean, everybody was awake after that. But that was just such a wonderful experience, and I've seen other flyovers many times, but that was the best and the greatest flyover that I will ever experience. And I like to embellish stories, and if they get better in time, it can't get any better than that.
Getting involved in charitable work. Olen has a very big heart, so please put your hands together for the general.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, you know, I've had a couple beers, and I don't think I'm even going to talk. I'm just going to go home and take a nap. You know, very few of you in this room know that Olen Acres is from Mississippi. I just want to go in right now and tell you the whole truth here. But, you know, we'll come back to that just a little bit later. But, you know, Olen's, when he was born, you know, their town, Mississippi doesn't have birth certificates, for those of you. When you're born, the county clerk has this spiral notebook and shows the spiral notebook and writes in there, you know, the day and where it was and all that stuff. And Melville was the county clerk back in his hometown county. He doesn't know that, but I looked up a little history here. And, you know, Melville used to get there early in the morning, and she would always crank up the wood stove there in the county courthouse. So when the mayor showed up, you know, mayors like warmth, the place would be kind of warm. And one day, you know, she always brought in some trash paper that she had to start the kindling and then start the fire. One day she didn't have any, and she just picked up the spiral notebook and ripped out a couple pages and tossed it in there and got the fire cranked up. Well, so you all think we're celebrating some year birthday for Olen tonight. I just want to tell you the whole truth. Because, you know, I know the Marine Corps records and I can get a hold of them. And the Marine Corps records for Olen, for his, it says age at date of enlistment. It's got 7-25 with a question mark behind it. So we're not too damn sure how old Olen is. To be very honest with you. And then for the hometown, it's got somewhere Mississippi. We don't know where the hell that's at either, you know? We don't have any idea where somewhere Mississippi is at. But, so I give you a little background of that because I think it's very important to know Olen's background. And now, you know, to tell you a couple other things about Olen is that, you know, he's well, he has Olen's rules. Some of you folks don't know that, but he has Olen's rules. And you know, when he walks down the street, he says, hey, Short, see that lady right there? She went to Ole Miss. He doesn't probably know that, but he says it anyway, you know. And so everybody, so one time I got a hold of Olen's rules. And here's Olen's rules about who's from Ole Miss. Well, first of all, if you were born in Mississippi, okay, you're from Mississippi. We'll give you that. Secondly, he said, you know, if you've ever driven across Mississippi, okay, you're from Mississippi. The other third rule is that if you've ever lived in Mississippi, now it doesn't say for how long, that doesn't interest him at all. It could be one day, a year. I lived there for 5 months. I must be from Mississippi. But he never told me I was from Mississippi. And the last one is that, you know, if you've ever thought that you lived in Mississippi, then you lived in Mississippi. And another thing about Olen's rules, I'll tell you real quick, is that, you know, if you're somebody like you're the CEO or you're the former senator of the state of Georgia, well, Olen claims you're from Mississippi. Now, if you're some dude that, like me that, you know, didn't do too well in life, well, you're not from Mississippi. That's the matter. He won't claim you at all. But, you know, Olen, you talk about, you know, being back in the country and how you get started in aviation. Well, he was out one day plowing their garden from the spring, get ready for spring planting in the garden with Herman the mule. They had a mule named Herman. Some of you don't know that either. And he saw this thing fly over. And he said, that looked like a bird. Maybe it is a bird. So he went in and got his dad. His dad's a very intellectual guy. He's principal of a school teacher. I don't know what happened to Olen, but that's okay. And he came out and he said, Dad, what is that? He said, you know, son, that's one of them things, the new things they call airplanes. He said, does it have wings? Yeah. He says, well, I don't see them flapping. So, well, no, he says, you know, there's somebody in there driving that. He says, well, how do you do that? He says, well, you got to learn how to fly. He says, well, can I do that? He says, well, yeah. How do you do it? He said, well, you can, if you're rich, you know, he says you can go take lessons and learn how to fly, and you can fly those dudes someday. He said, but if you're not rich like us, he said, you might want to go in the military. You know, Olen had some college education, so he says, well, what service is best? Well, you don't have a college education, you can't go in the Air Force. You know, the Navy, who wants to live on a boat? He says, but you can be a Marine. And Olen said, you know, Dad, those guys are crazy dudes. They crawl around in the mud and think it's a good time. He said, well, you know, yeah, that's the way it is, Dad. But he said, you might want to give that a try. He says, and by the way, if you become a jet fighter pilot, you attract the women. Here's Jan, here's my wife Mary. See, there's perfect living proof. I don't tell lies up here. But, you know, so Olen, he went to flight school. And you know, he came out and there he became a jet fighter pilot. And we heard about he knows what low-level flight is, definition of that. But from there, he did a hell of a job in the flight school. And the first jet he flew, I think, was Orville Wright's jet. I'm not sure. By the time he was a lot of things you don't know, lady. But as he got older, you know, he transitioned into the F-8 Crusader, which is one of the top fighters, single-seat fighter in the United States Marine Corps, and not an easy not an easy aircraft to fly. In fact, when those guys used to go out to the boat in the aircraft carrier, you know, the Marines going out there in F-8, they said that the film was all brought out of the ship's store about 3 months ahead of time, so everybody could get out there and take some pictures, because you never knew what the hell they were going to do next. But you know, we have a couple of ethos in the Marine Corps, and one of them is that you know, you can take the boy or the man and the woman out of the Marine Corps, but you can never take the Marine Corps out of the man or the woman. And Olen Acres epitomizes that. I will tell you another thing, you know, one of the things we always say is Semper Fidelis. Well, I'll just tell you that I know Olen Acres real well, and he lives Semper Fidelis. He doesn't talk about it, you know, easy to talk, hard to walk the talk. And he does that. I'm the head of the Marine Corps Coordinating Council for Georgia, and I've been doing that for a lot of years. And we help Marine warriors, wounded warriors and families that are having a little trouble getting back on their feet with some financial planning and stuff. And I took this thing over. It was really interesting. There was a general in charge of it, and he died. And you know, I didn't think much of that. He was a nice man. I went to his funeral, and somebody came up to me and he said, "You're next."
To die?
Here I am. No, yeah, that too. 13 years later. But we weren't making any money on that thing. We had the only fundraiser we had was a golf tournament. We still have it every year. The first year there, we made $3,000. You know, and that doesn't carry you far in the war zone. So Olen took over the golf tournament. The next year, we made $47,000. And it's all good to him. And whoever said, you know, the guy was a salesman, hell, that guy could sell you. I better not say that here. You know, he has done that, and he still works hard on it. And the old story of once a Marine, always a Marine is very true. And I'll tell you another thing about him. You know, you can call him a Marine, you can call him a fighter pilot, you can call him a husband, you can call him a son. All those are great titles without a doubt. But I call him my fellow Marine and a close friend.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should ruin the whole evening by singing, but I do have a song. And it was written by a fellow Mississippian and I, Elvis Presley, and I wrote this many years ago. Okay, here, Mayor. Sorry, baby. Embarrassing's part of being married. I told you that earlier.
You were in charge.
There are people that told you at the wedding, hurry up and get the hell out of here before they say I do. Okay, here it goes. Let me see if I can remember it. I hope I can. Yesterday when I was young, life was a barrel of money and a whole hell of a lot of fun. Now that I'm old and somewhat gray, I wonder where the hell all the damn years have gone away. Yesterday when I was young. Yesterday when I was young, I got up at 0500, put on my togs, and ran 3 to 5 miles in the rain. Now that I'm old and somewhat gray, I put on my togs, walked 200 feet, and my legs have pain to stay. Okay, Mayor, what's the hell with the third paragraph? I'm going to say
the national anthem. Hey, Denny. It's okay. Denny.
What?
You know.
Jan knows the third verse.
Okay, I just got my marching orders here. But I had this song written out by Elvis. Yesterday when I was young, I used to go out and drink beer and have a hell of a lot of fun every night. Now that I'm old and somewhat gray, I drink a half a beer and go to bed at 9 o'clock, and the next day I'm full of pain. And maybe I better quit that, Mayor.
Happy birthday, Cece.
Good job.
There's one more verse, but Elvis told me not to sing it. But okay, here's the song we all know. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear old Ford. Happy birthday to you.
discussing driving across Mississippi made me think about what it's like to drive in a car with Olen Akers. I thought I'd get a few laughs out of that because who's been trapped, no, not trapped, who's been in a car with Olen and thought to themselves, where's the nearest cliff because we have to drive off of it. Olen's will drive in circles to say, wait, there's a state capitol and it's only 40 miles away. Let's go. Here's a college that no one's ever heard of. We need to take a look at it right now. Or my wife tells me every other day about the trip when she was a teenager when he took her to Antietam in the blazing heat and would never relent. And she actually has PTSD from that. So, it's a very sensitive subject. We really shouldn't even bring it up. Yes, I should not have brought it up. Our next speaker is Mark Elliott, who's a longtime friend, worked with Olen at Burroughs, and has some recollections of Olen. Please give Mark a round of applause.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with my friend and Olen and Janet. It's just been wonderful. And I've known Olen not as long as y'all have, but I have known Olen since Lassie was a puppy. A lot of people don't. I'm glad you relate to that because I've done it with my kids and they give me that stare and everything, you know. And if you think back in today's world, Lassie wouldn't be on because Timmy's in the mine shaft, Timmy's in the damn well. He's playing with cougars, you know. He's got a bear cub and all this, you know. His parents would have been taking him away a long time ago. But I have known Olen a long time, and it's been just great memories. I mean, everything that you talked about, you know, Stu and all the people that have that, I mean, I can reinforce he's an incredible negotiator. I mean, look at Jan. I mean, that's the first thing I had. And I go back to just so many memories, but I remember one, we'd sold a big deal, and we were going into, it was to a company that had ex-IBM branch managers, Bill Oliver, Frank Howard, Frank Smith. Frank Smith looked like God. I mean, you go in and everybody was so intimidated, and they said, we had to go in and present, and they go, Mark, aren't you worried? And I go, no, I've got Olen with me. Olen was a CPA, you know, Arthur Anderson, Marine fighter pilot. He's got Jan, I mean, dates beautiful women. I mean, how could they have anything on me that I don't have with Olen in my corner? And that's how it's been, you know, he's been in my corner. He's been my mentor, my role model, my friend in good times and in tough times. He's always been there, and the Simplify and all of that he lives that. He's an example of integrity, honesty, and just somebody that I've looked up to and admired, and will always have you as a dear, dear friend forever. And that's, she only gave me 3 minutes. She gave everybody else that. You said 5, and I go,
I said 3 to 5.
3 to 5, and I go, well, that's good, because 5, you know, I'll probably have to go to the restroom, you know. So it's time to go. Oh, no, I love you, man.
Our next speaker is Fran Miller, a former state senator who has some thoughts about Olen's activity in the community. Fran, will you please come say a few words?
I had this wonderful speech, which my wife made me write in my head, because she says, I want you to be serious tonight. Well, we're past that stage. First of all, understand something. There are other companies, okay, that sell computers besides Burroughs. There is a company called NCR, which I worked for my first job. But we couldn't compete against Burroughs, so I got out of that industry. And you know, I was, in all honesty, it was interesting thinking about Olen, particularly over the years. I guess the first thing that came to mind when you think of Olen Akers, he's a man's man.
Yeah.
He's a man's man when you first meet him. And you met a guy, as soon as you spent some time with him, you know he's principled, he's got core beliefs, and he doesn't waver from them. That means he's stubborn. No, but whatever it happens to be, he lives his beliefs. And being in politics for 20 years, that means something to me, because we don't see a lot of it right now. But again, the other thing, they talk about him being a Marine pilot. Now, I looked at Tom Cruise up here, and I wondered, how the hell did he ever fit in the cockpit? Does anybody explain that? Where's the other pilot? Yeah, but you don't count, because I'm not gonna give you the mic. We're Stu. Yeah, Stu. Well, how'd you fit in the, no. But I just wonder how old, as big as he is, ever fit in the cockpit. But again, he's a loyal person. I mean, stop and think about it. I know he talked about the wonders of the state of Mississippi and Ole Miss particularly. But you know, they weren't real good for a while in football, and yet every home game, he puts her in the car, backseat of my head, puts her in the car and drives to Oxford. What is it, 6 hours? 6 hours? Get your brains beat in and drive back. I mean, going, really? So, you really are a saint. But you know, I think of the people over the years that I've known, a bunch of us live in the same neighborhood, okay? I live on the main street, they live down there in Little Brook. Well, there's other people live, they live down there. And, yeah, that's right, Section 8 housing, no. But anyway, our little reaction from the table here. Yeah. Good thing I'm not in politics anymore. Damn, Hunter, where did you hide that stuff in the garage? No, but anyway, it's, I would say this to you, and I would say this about, nobody said it yet, so I'll say this. Nobody said the combination of Mutt and Jeff, Jan and Olen here, the height. There are no more giving people that I know. I mean, if I got a sniffle, there's a rum cake on my front porch. Okay? And if you ever needed anything, everybody in this room, if you ever needed anything, they would be there for you. So in all seriousness, we are all very, very lucky to count these people as friends. And I hope God continues to bless you all. And I'll be back for the 100th party, I hope. But again, I think all of us in this room, we're so blessed to know you and Jan together. So thank you very much for that.
I have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint, and I can send copies afterwards. So, where did Dale go? Oh, there he is. Okay. So, is it scary or what? So, anyhow, yeah, we're supposed to be the roast part of this.
Yes.
So I feel like I've followed Steve Martin and all kinds of, really good people already. But I will share some neighborhood stories with you that maybe you haven't heard yet. So my wife Kathy and I, we moved to we moved to Little Brook in 1999, right? So before we were able to move in the house, for 2 months we lived in like a residence inn because Kathy said this place is a pit. And she said, I'll buy it, but I want it totally gutted and done my way. So of course, we moved 17 times, and that's always the way it works out. And I knew that was the way it was going to work out. So we hired a contractor, and he came in, and that particular Saturday, we were there at the house, and he took, the contractor took all the toilets out of the 4 bathrooms, and he lined the 4 toilets up along the driveway to be hauled off later, had the lids up. Okay. And so we're in the kitchen talking to the contractor. We hear this knock, knock, knock on the door between the garage and the kitchen, right? And so we open the door, and there's Jan and Olen. And they go, hi, we're the Akers, we're your neighbors. So I said, well, come in, hello. And of course, the house was totally torn up and trashed, and Kathy, didn't look her best, which usually she does. And I looked as awful as I always do. And so they came in, we chit-chatted, and they got ready to leave, and I said, well, I have to tell you, I really apologize for the 4 toilet salute on the way up the driveway. And I said, you have to understand, Olen and Jan, I'm from Kansas. And Olen said, that's okay, I'm from Mississippi. So then I knew I was going to like this guy. And I really did. So, how about you, Dale? What was your early experience?
Well, I got a big experience because Judy and I live right across the street from Jan and Olen. Oh, I thought I'd get a big round of applause.
Sympathy.
And with your sympathy, I certainly appreciate it all from each of you. And you guys that were from boroughs, you know, I know you were trying to learn and learning from the best, and that's one of the reasons I moved across from Olen, because I work for IBM. Anyway, I mean, he was learning from me. I gotta straighten that out. Olen, you are a great, great neighbor, and you know, we may say a thing or two here that won't sound like we think you're such a great neighbor, but you really are. What was I gonna do next?
We're gonna talk about some of your golfing experiences with Olen.
Well-
They were scary.
That's tiring.
How many? Does some of you in here play golf with Olen? Have you played with Olen? Okay, good.
You have your medal?
Pardon me?
Your medal for playing with Olen?
Yeah, I get a medal for playing with Olen, and I went out there and played with him, and then he came home one day and he said, you know, got something to tell you. They changed the name of our seniors golf people, you know, out there at the athletic club. I said, what's the name of the club? And he said, well, I think they named it after me because, you know, my birthday was today when we actually changed the name. And I said, well, what name did they give you? And he said, well, they named it after me and they call it the Duffers. Is there any Duffers here? Oh, yeah, okay, all right, so you know what I mean. So Olen, thank God, you know, I got you as a neighbor, and I can learn some more golf from you, hopefully. And I'll do the best I can, but welcome to the Duffers.
So, in addition to that, in addition to welcoming me as a Kansan who could be accepted as a Southerner, Olen tried to introduce me to fine Southern cooking. So, some of the examples of that is we went to an Ole Miss game in Alabama one time, and it was sort of a late afternoon game. So by the time, and there was a group of us guys, so by the time we came home, it was late at night. And I said, Olen, I'm kind of hungry. And he said, well, that's okay. There's a Waffle House up here. We'll pull into the Waffle House. I think maybe you were with us then. I don't know. Anyhow, I said, Olen, what's a Waffle House? Because we didn't have them. We still don't have them in Kansas. And so he said, oh, you're in for a treat. And so I said, what's so good here when we got in and sat down? And he said, the hash browns. You gotta have the hash browns. You can have them with onions, you can have them with bacon, you can have them with sausage. You can have it all together. He said, it's the best hash brown. It's like you've died and gone to heaven. So I did. I got the biggest plate of hash browns you've ever seen in your life. And it was loaded with everything. Sausage, bacon, I don't know what all. And this is on top of having a few drinks at the game and everything. So that was a wonderful memory. However, the next morning I'm sick as a damn dog. So that was one. The other thing that Olen introduced me to is Cracker Barrel, and I have to say, I still dream about their meatloaf and their chicken fried chicken. You know, that's right. That's right. So, and the third thing was one time we went to, I love catfish. I really, really love fried catfish, and my wife hates it. She hates hush puppies, all that kind of stuff. But we went to a football game in Oxford, Mississippi, and Owens had talked.
Where was it?
I'm sorry, Oxford. Yeah, Oxford, right? Yeah, and that is in Mississippi, right? And so Olen had talked for years about, because I never got to go to any of the football games in Oxford because it was when I was working, it was a busy season. So, but this year I got to go, and he said, we got to go to Taylor Groceries. Is anybody here eating at Taylor Groceries? All right, so you know. So Olen had said about this wonderful place, Taylor Groceries, and the best catfish you've ever had in your life and everything. So we get settled in our really beautiful inn that we're staying in, you know, right on the campus and everything. And little town, cool as we driving through it, but we kept driving, and we kept driving. So we pull up in this seedy little town, I'm sorry, but it is, and in front of this rundown little building that had like tin roof on it and everything, and on the top of it, it had a sign saying Taylor Grocery, and I thought, oh, crud. What has Olen done to us? I mean, I don't know. I didn't even go to the bathroom in here, let alone eat catfish. But we parked the car, and we walked up the front porch. We couldn't get a table right away because it was crowded, so, I mean, that's a good sign. but there was an old gas pump from like 1930, and on the gas pump it said, "Taylor Grocery, eat or we both starve." And so Kathy whispered to me and she said, "I'm not going in there, I'm not." And she said, "I don't even like that fish." And so lo and behold, though, we got in there and they had chicken, so she was okay, she stayed, she didn't leave. And we had the best time at Taylor Grocery, so thank you, Ola, for that memory. I mean,
I have this shirt. You bought me the shirt.
oh yeah, she's got Kathy has a t-shirt she still wears all the time. It says, "Eat or we both starve." That's a good memory.
Dave, you gotta keep this up, you gotta keep the microphone longer, because you've got some good material.
Oh.
on your mouth.
Loving by Jan and Ellen, there's
That's
an endless
serious.
amount of material.
You know, the one, I glanced back here at the page you and I worked on, and we've been working on this for last year, because this is.
A year, that's true.
It's supposed to be a year ago.
Right.
We've been working all this time.
A year.
And still working on it.
You don't get old.
The one thing that I saw when I glanced back here, and it's been kind of quiet in here, and I don't know if this will liven it up at all. And I mean, it's just, you all know how Olen is kind of a big guy, right? Big, tall guy and everything. All this line says is, you gotta go, I can't read this very well. This add the fact that Olen wears a size 16 socks, but a size 7 jockstrap. Now you know.
I didn't know that one. I didn't know that one. So.
I think it's reversed.
That's all I got, Dave.
Yeah. Two last stories, I promise, and I'll keep them short. But Rick, you were just saying a little while ago about the road trips. Okay, so Jan and Olen have favored us with coming to visit us several times, and they've all been treasured memories. But every time they come, Olen says, well, he wants to see this, and he wants to see that, and he'd like to see this, and he'd like to see that. And the girls either just go out to eat or shop. And so, which is fine. And so one of the trips, Olen said, I read all about the Eisenhower Library in Abilene, Kansas. And I said, yeah, I've never been there. It's supposed to be really, really a great presidential library. So how far is it? And I said, it's about 3.5 hours or so. And he said, let's plan a day and get up early and do that. So I said, okay. So we did. We got up early. We had a quick breakfast. We got on the road. We started driving, and every road sign that came by, Olen would say, what's this? Should we stop here? Should we do that? But we didn't. We didn't until we got to Manhattan, Kansas, which is about an hour outside of Abilene. And if those of you who know, Manhattan is the home of Kansas State University, right? So Olen says, also on my bucket list is I want to see all the major state university football stadiums. And I said, okay, but Olen, Manhattan isn't really just right off the interstate here. I said, we've got to drive in a ways. And he said, that's okay. Nice day. And so we drove in and found the stadium, and lo and behold, usually it's all locked up and everything, but the gate was open that day, Olen, do you remember? And he said, oh, the gate's open, let's go inside and look around. So we did. We went inside and we looked around. They were doing some construction work. So we looked around and he said, well, let's drive through the little town. And so we did. It's a real old, typical Kansas town around a town square. And they have a lot of yellow limestone buildings there. I mean, the original buildings. And he said, what's that stone? And I said, well, it's Kansas limestone. And he said, I've never seen anything like that. That's really interesting. Let's drive around a little bit more. So we did. So then we got back on the interstate. We headed back toward the interstate, and there was a lookout for the Kansas foothills. Well, if you know much about Kansas, there's hardly any reason to go to Kansas. But they claim that one of the best things to see is the Flint Hills when they flower. Well, God forbid they happen to be flowering that day. So Olen said, I've been K-State, I can't tell you, my son went to school there, we went to lots of football games, and Olen said, let's pull up and look at the Flint Hills. So I said, okay. So we pulled over and we walked down the walk into the field, and there was nobody there, and it was pretty, but it's a field with a lot of flowers in it. That's it. That's all there is. Olen says, as long as we're here and there's no one around, let's use this as a restroom stop. So we got our maximum value out of that stop, and we got back on the road. And we're going along toward Abilene, and over to the right is a military base, and Olen says, is that a military base? And I said, yes, I think it is. And he said, well, have you been there? And I said, no, it's restricted. So no. And Olen, we're not going there today either. And we've got to get to Abilene. And it's almost like a song, right? And so we finally get into Abilene. We eat at a really good little restaurant, and we get to the museum about 1 o'clock. Well, it's very big with multiple, it's a campus, basically. So we went to the gift shop, and Olen says, I want to go in theater and see the history. And it was very interesting. And so we did that, and then we went to his boyhood home, and it was just the two of us, Olen and me, and the docent. The docent was really good, but Olen asked so many questions. I think the docent was exhausted by the time. And so then we got into the museum part, which was fascinating. I have to say, if you've never been there and you get a chance, go. But half of it is on Eisenhower's military career, and the other half of it is on Eisenhower's presidential career. We never made it beyond the military. They came, they brought guards, and they said, it's 5 o'clock, we're locking everything up, you have to leave. And Olen said, but we haven't gotten to the presidential part yet. And they said, you have to leave. And so I said, Olen, we've got to get back on the road because Kathy and Jen are fixing this dinner, and we're 3.5 hours or so left away. And so we got back on the road. And we did pretty well until we got to Topeka, which is also on the interstate on the way there, about an hour and a half outside of Kansas City. And he said, Topeka's the state capital of Kansas, isn't it? And I said, yes. He said, that's also on my bucket list. I want to go to every capital of every state. I said, Olen, Topeka sucks. I'm sorry. It's really, there's nothing there. I mean, Manhattan's a lot cooler than Topeka. I mean, you've already seen that. And he said, no, I'd really like to go see the Capitol at least. So I said, so we went into town, got off the interstate, we drove around the Capitol with the big dome. And Olen said, by this time it was like 6 o'clock, and Olen said, what's the statue of the Indian on the horse with the arrow pointing toward the sky? What's the symbolism of that? And I said, hell, Olen, I don't know. And you know what? I don't care. I'm really hungry. And the girls are fixing dinner for us. So we went ahead and went home. But you know what? And I still don't know what that statue means.
I need to tell one more story. I have a minute left. No, I get this. So we went, Olen and I were out traveling, and we're in the country at a barbecue place, and we went to the restroom, and it was a 2-seater. It was a true story. And he was adjusting his pants after he got through, and 45 cents fell out of his pocket and all down into the latrine there. And Olen, I look at him, and he looks back at me, and he's like, you can see like tears in his eyes. He reaches in his pocket, he takes a $20 bill out, and he throws it in there. And I go, what in the hell are you doing? He said, Mark, you didn't think I was going to go in there just for 45 cents. That's a cool story.
We have an awful lot more material, but we know that our times.
Save it for my 100.
Well, just one quickie I was going to throw out there. Judy and I live across the street from Jan and Olen, and we always kind of put a happy birthday balloon on the mailbox of the day that one of us on the other side of the street is, had another birthday. Of course, this year we had Olen's at, and there's a big question mark about what the numbers were that we put on his grave. I didn't mean that. On his mailbox. I'm sorry. Anyway, Judy got me up early that morning and said, Dale, we don't have a balloon over there for Olen yet, so why don't you go to the store and get a balloon? I went up and got 2 very beautiful gold numerals
But you also called me to see how old he was.
How old I was or him? Anyway, I picked up this 8 and this 6 and brought it home. Took it out there, carefully put it out. It's got, it's got air. It's gonna blow up in the air, up above the mailbox and be a beautiful tribute to Olen for that day. 86. However, I look out the window about 15 minutes later. That sucker's turned around. It's a 6. The 9 he turned upside down. That's a 6 and an 8. And he had everybody thinking he was 68. Now let's just try to let him feel good here one way or the other. How many in here think that the number should be 68? Okay, how about a 96? 86. Okay, all right. We're tribute to you. No, that's all right. That's all right.
I know we need to cut it short, but
It's too late to cut it short.
I know, I can't help myself. I mean, ask Kathy, anyhow, this is the last thing, Olen. So I did call Ole Miss, and said, is there anything, we were having this roast, Ellen and I, and is there anything they wanted to say? And, of course, the one time I was able to go to an Ole Miss game, I saw tribute bricks, I saw plaques on the walls, I saw this, I saw that, because I know you're one of their best alumni supporters ever. So they said yes, they had decided on a very important change, and they sent this to me and wanted me to give it to you.
That's the seat where you put the visitors for the football game.
They have changed their logo. No, there should be more in there than that. That was for me. There's their new logo.
Olen Miss.
That was beautiful. And boy, did those guys deliver on a roast, huh? I actually think every man in this room just benefited by this, because we're going to tell our wives tonight that if you ever throw a party for me, make sure that the roast does not include anything about my jock size and nothing about my bathroom habits outside. So thank you guys for that. The last speaker of the evening is his beautiful, who is an angel and a saint, and of course everyone here loves her deeply. Jan last night told me something very romantic about Olen that I actually had not known before. That early in their marriage and in his effort to show what a continental kind of guy he was, he would take her to a particular place that had a lot of very exotic foods. And he would make sure that she had a wonderful time eating foods from around the world. It's Costco. And that's how Olen would take her on dates. Jan, get dressed up, we're going to Costco, honey. Mr. Romance. Well, there is no romance in Olen's life without Jan, so please put your hands together for Jan H.
Well, I am the end. And maybe the beginning. I don't know. But I have been married to this wonderful man for over 40 years. He's never let me down. He's always had great integrity, and he makes me laugh a lot. We thank you so much for coming tonight and celebrating with us. And I've always thought it's a very nice thing when people can hear the good things about themselves and not hear those good things when they can't hear them. So we thank you so much for coming. And we still have food and we have drinks, and we just thank you for celebrating with us.
Thank you.
Actually, I had a pretty nasty,
You're on your clock.
I had a pretty nasty message expecting a lot worse. But I gotta tell you one thing about the trip to Alabama. We stopped in what the little town is just beside of Talladega and had lunch. And there's all these drivers, there are pictures all over
I mean, there's more pictures than are in this room. And they're all drivers, and they're all talking about Talladega. So as we drive past Talladega, I said, well, there's a racetrack. And Dave said, horses or dogs? And he was dead serious, he didn't know what was there.
Ouch.
Well,
And we always call him and say, when we're going back,
every time we go
horses
by
or
Talladega,
dogs?
we call them and say, it's horses today. But anyway, it's so great for all of you to come. I appreciate it so much. Somebody asked me recently, you know, what's the secret to getting old? And I said, hell, I don't know, ask me later. So, anyway, I don't feel old. I feel maybe 68, but anyway, I've had a very blessed life. God's been good to me, saved me from a lot of bad situations, and now I have a lot of great friends. I've enjoyed them all, and I thank you for being among those. I particularly want to thank Jan for putting all this together. She talked about this a year and a half ago, and I said, no, I don't want to have a birthday party. And she kept saying, well, you're going to have one. So anyway, so she planned it last year, of course, and that didn't work out. We went to Sugar Bowl and messed that up for several of us in here. We're there at the Sugar Bowl and got COVID. But anyway, we put it off, but it's been great, and I appreciate it so much. But I try to follow one of my really idols, and that's Clint Eastwood, who says, don't let the old man in. So I'm striving to do that. So thank you all for coming. I love you all, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the venues that I know. I feel very blessed. There are people here from New York, Williamsburg, Raleigh, Jacksonville, Melbourne, Florida, Jackson, Mississippi, Kansas City, San Diego. Who am I missing? Anyway, Knoxville, Tennessee, the Hill Country.
All right.
Okay. So thank you all. Eat up, drink up, and be merry.
Yes.